Hi, everybody, and welcome to another CampusTap webinar. Today we have a great cast with us. We have a great group of people from the University of Utah, and we will be presenting on bringing all stakeholders to the career development table. We're really excited about it. I've worked a lot with these folks in the past, and we've really had a great relationship with them, so we're very excited to have them share their insights around programming and strategies to really engage academic partners, other departments, upper level administration, students and employers all around career development. So before we get into things, I would like to do a quick intro and just let everyone know about the format of today's webinar. It's going to be a little bit different than we've done things in the past. Kelly, Trisha, and Eric have put together a great presentation. So for about the first 20 minutes, maybe to a half hour, they're going to be kind of sharing that presentation and walking us through that. And then we'll have a little bit of a much more longer form discussion than we have in the past. So instead of that 10 to 15 minutes for a Q&A, we'll have about 20 minutes to a half an hour to have a little bit more open discussion and get a little bit more in depth about their presentation. So as always, please feel free to pop any of your questions into the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. We will take note of those and then get into those when we get into the discussion portion. So without further ado, let's kick things off. First off, we have Kelly Dries, who is the Associate Director for Counseling Services and Operations. So as that Associate Director for Counseling Services and Operations at the University of Utah Career and Professional Development Center, Kelly supervises 10 career coaches, 3 of whom are also assistant directors, while overseeing staff training and managing and coordinating the outreach for academic and campus partners, including deans, department chairs, faculty advisors, and staff. Prior to finding her niche in career services, Kelly worked in student activities as a researcher at an elite pediatric research institute and as a middle school teacher. She is currently pursuing her final year as a PhD candidate in educational leadership and policy at the University of Utah. She earned her MA from Towson University in Maryland and a BA and BS from East Stroudsburg University in Pennsylvania. Today, we also have Trisha Jensen, who is the Assistant Director of Employer Relations and Internship Development. So Trisha is the Assistant Director for Employer Engagement and Internship Development within the Career and Professional Development Center at the University of Utah as well. Before joining the CPDC 3 years ago, she worked in orientation and leadership development for 6 years and earned her master's degree in educational leadership and policy. Trisha spends her spare time raising a pair of spunky 22-month-old twin girls and trying to remember what it means to have hobbies. She also occasionally squeezes in her favorite pastime, which is yoga. And last, but certainly not least, we have Eric Bloomquist, who is a career coach and assistant director for assessment within the Career and Professional Development Center at the University of Utah. Prior to this, he worked in the College of Business Administration and the Career Services Office at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln while earning his master's degree in Student Affairs Administration. In addition to working at the U, Eric sings with the Salt Lake Vocal Artists and enjoys traveling as much as he can. And luckily for him, he's been able to travel internationally with the vocal artist and has visited 18 national parks since moving to Utah in 2014. So let's give a big hand for our panel. And that's going to be a little bit of the last you'll hear from me for a while, as I will let Kelly, Eric, and Trisha take the presentation away.
Thank you, Ethan, and thank you everybody for joining us today. We're really excited to chat with you a little bit about some of the things that we're doing on the University of Utah campus and share some of our insight with you and hopefully have some great conversation a little bit around some of the things that you all are doing on your campuses. So today, a little snapshot of what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about strategies for coordinating efforts on a large, primarily decentralized campus. We're going to share some of the ways that we've been able to engage academic partners, specifically deans and some faculty and upper level administrators with the work that we're doing in the center, as well as how we're integrating employers into that work with academic partners as well as with students, and really ultimately talk about how we've created a collaborative environment here and really embedded it into the work that we do in the Career Center. And I'm going to throw it to Trisha, who's going to get us started.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And as you would hope, we want to start by setting the stage a little bit. Kelly mentioned that we are on a largely decentralized campus. So just to give you an idea, for those that might not be familiar with the University of Utah, we are a flagship Research One institution, part of the Pac-12. We have about 32,000 students on our campus. About 25,000 of those are undergrads. So it's a large population that we're serving. And another good detail just to know about kind of the culture of our institution is that while being decentralized, we also have an entrepreneurial focus in a lot of what we do, from our students to our faculty to our staff, which, as you can imagine, kind of exacerbates that decentralization and really that focus on sometimes recreating the wheel where it doesn't need to be. So that ties into a lot of what we're going to address today, is how we've kind of managed to center ourselves in the work that we're doing and fit it into that campus and kind of what our reality really is. So why this focus on collaboration and kind of coordinating our efforts? Some of the pieces that we've pulled out that we're going to highlight today are that we really want to position ourselves as a critical part of student success, and we're going to talk about how we do that. We want to increase student touch points by educating others on what we do. So it's not just us talking about the work that we do. We want to facilitate touch points with connections with all of our stakeholders, not just the ones that are most accessible or making appointments with us. So that's faculty, staff, students, alumni, employers. That's a very long list. And then the last part, another reason that collaboration is great is that we're always looking, everyone's always looking for more financial resources, and how do we do more with less? And we found that really bringing other people to the table can help us in this area as well.
So to get specific with some of those whys and kind of tying to the bigger purpose is kind of how we've done some of these initiatives. And what we've tried to do is think of a couple examples to demonstrate these, but the 4 bullet points here are kind of the overarching themes of how this is played out regardless of what the initiative might be. We're going to talk a bit about 2 specific examples around first destination data collection and also internship efforts. But the common thread with those examples are these kind of methods. So first, we've found that it's important to try to determine individual department needs and find trends among them. So being on a decentralized campus, there's a lot of activity in all the different colleges, often around the same initiatives and with the same priorities. And so we, as a centralized center on the university campus, we look for those overlapping areas and the trends among departments' needs and try to fill those. And part of that strategy in helping get buy-in is identifying ways that we can take things off other people's plates. So a lot of initiatives that we oversee is something that a lot of faculty don't want to do, or it might be part of what they feel is important but don't get compensated for or rewarded for. So recognizing where we can take things off other people's plates is a method of kind of coordinating efforts on a decentralized campus like ours. And similarly, really fitting ourselves into the department's priorities. So one of the examples Kelly mentioned is our reporting out to deans, and in each of those meetings we ask, what are your priorities for your college, and the next few years where you see yourself going. And very often the things that are shared are very much priorities that we also share as a center. So just finding ways to fit their priorities and our priorities together into one goal. And then of course, maintaining flexibility. Things change, people change on college campuses, and priorities change, and so it's important to stay nimble as we're coordinating efforts across many departments. So to the examples, the first example we're going to talk about is coordinating our first destination data collection efforts, which is part of my role as Assistant Director for Assessment. So I'm going to talk a bit about this. Being in a centralized office in a very decentralized university, there's a lot of challenges we run into with wanting to have an institutionalized process for getting this data, and having methods that are consistent for collecting and sharing out to the appropriate stakeholders, while also needing to make our survey, our form, and our data collection meet the needs of individual department needs, or individual departments, which has been really challenging. So in the last couple of years, we've really revamped processes with some strategic collaborations with our registrar and other institutional offices to really iron out seamless processes for gathering this data. and understanding still that other colleges have their own ways of doing this. And so thinking about their needs and finding trends among them, really what we've done with this specific initiative is have our process like ironed out how we want it to be as an institution, and find ways that it can certainly, without impeding the needs of the colleges, be embedded within their existing strategies for communication. So, for example, specifically, many departments do exit surveys with their students. Rather than going and taking over their exit survey and saying, well, here's what we need you to do for the exit survey to gather this data that we need, we say, oh, good, we're both collecting this information. It's critical for both of our priorities. Can we work on this together to make sure you're getting the data you need, and we're making sure that data is embedded into the institutional process for collecting this data. So that's just one specific example of how that's worked. And touching on the maintaining flexibility with this, as I said, departments' needs change over time, and people within them change over time as well. So as we've been evolving the processes and getting better data and kind of working with new people in different departments all the time, this is an ongoing initiative and effort that I guess is constantly changing, but it's what makes this work, I think, exciting, working on decentralized campuses. So that's a little bit about the first destination piece, and Trisha can talk about the internship piece.
Yeah, so the second example we thought of in this area is maybe a little, I would say, a little less developed than what we have done with the first destination, but also illustrates kind of using this process. So in our office, I was actually hired 3 years ago to kind of tackle internship efforts within our office because it was something that had been done for a long time and very much was part of the Career Center, but was not anyone's focus. And what I found when I came in, I was kind of told, go figure out how to do internships on campus, but really I just work within our area. So a big part of that was creating partnerships and really figuring out what was the internship landscape on our campus. Because internships definitely were happening in lots of departments across campus, not all of them. And some of them were doing really great, some of them not so much, some of them not at all. And so what we've really done in this area was identifying, like I said, what is that current landscape, and then developing resources that are helpful for us and our initiatives for internships, but also things that we could share freely with those folks across campus to really help, like Eric said, take things off people's plates or fit ourselves into their priorities. I spent a lot of time meeting with departments and colleges that want to focus on internships, but maybe don't know how to get started, or it's one of those things that is, was somebody's pet until they left, and then there's no one to take ownership over it, and then figuring out how we can help support moving internships forward within a specific department. And really what I found that's worked really well in this area, and I unfortunately don't remember who to credit this to, but I had someone at one point point out to me, don't stress about being decentralized and the fact that it's not moving as quickly as you might want, but figure out how to play with the willing, and that's worked really, really well in this internships area. We have very different relationships with all of the departments across campus specific to internships, but we have lots more resources and efforts in the areas where people want us to help, and it's been interesting to watch how at first it was 1 or 2 departments that were really engaged with, yes, please come in and help us set some standards for internships, or help us create a syllabus because we want to start a course, or help connect us with employers. And it was very slow to start at first, and now that I think the scales have tipped a little bit, we've gained some momentum, I now have folks from departments actually coming to me into our office and saying, I saw that you did this in another department. This is where our sticking point is with internships. How do we fix it? Or how do we move forward? And it's really being more of a resource and a service, and kind of coming in and saying, this is what we bring to the table. How does it fit in with what you're trying to do? So this is definitely very much a work in progress. We don't have an effort across campus to do anything specific with internships, but we've, I think, all identified that they're important and worked with people on campus where there's a need to help try to advance what we're doing forward. So the next slide, we're actually going to kick it to Kelly now. We're going to jump to our next focus, and we're going to talk about deans and upper level engagement.
Yeah, so one of our biggest stakeholders that we've identified from our office, and we have quite a few that we have some intentional strategy around, but one of those is really working with our academic partners. And key to that is deans, is faculty, is upper level administrators. And when I was hired into this associate director role several years ago, the position had added in this key piece, which hadn't been a part historically of the context of this job, but our director recognized the need to really have some strategy around how we're engaging our higher level administrators, especially in the academic affairs side of the house. So a lot of what we've done over the last couple of years is really create an intentional strategy around how to build those relationships, how to collaborate, as Eric mentioned, how to find and identify their areas of need and maybe how we can overlap with some of the things that we're trying to do. And sometimes it's simple. So we do have one-to-one meetings with the deans each semester that we reach out and set up and individually meet with them to see what are their priorities for the upcoming year. We also are very intentional about outreaching to them when they're new to campus. So this past year, we had 2 brand new deans who started on July 1. And on July 1, they had a welcome email from the Career Center in their inbox to say, hey, welcome to the University of Utah. We'd love to collaborate with you as you set up your vision and mission for your work in the college. We'd love to be able to share some of the information we have about your students' outcomes. Can we set up a meeting? And it's really great when we can meet with a new dean in the first month to try to figure out where are their goals, where do they want to take the college, and maybe how are there some ways that we can intersect and support the work that we're doing, but also in that process create a critical partner in our success as a center. Within those one-on-one meetings once a semester, we also do share some dean reports. And in those reports is utilization data from our office and how students are using our center. And by sharing that data and being honest, we've had some more buy-in. You know, we've had a dean where he saw the data and said, this isn't good enough, and I want more of your students using our center. What are you doing right now in the market, and how can I support? He sent a message to all of his students to say, you need to be using the Career Center. And when we brought back our report the next year, we increased student percentage and student utilization of our office by 150%. So just having that buy-in, being able to share the data and get their support has been really critical. And within that, we also share outcome data so that we can showcase the great things that their students are doing, but also get their support, one, to help us collect the data, because when their numbers aren't near 100%, they do want to say, okay, how can we get this so we know where all graduates are going? What's your process? How can we support? And that's helped us with, as Eric talked about, our first destination collection information has really been enhanced because of their support. From those conversations, we've also been able to identify a need for an online career course where one of our colleges worked with us to actually create the curriculum for an online career course that will be piloted this upcoming semester and will be co-taught by one of our career coaches and an alumni from the college. So it gives an opportunity for us to meet and partner with an alumni, but also teach students and get them thinking about their career readiness very early on in their process and their academic trajectory. One thing that I did skip over here is we also have meetings with our Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs on a semesterly basis to inform them of what we're doing, to share some of our struggle points, but to also find ways that we can better collaborate with them in some instances for some of the larger projects like our internship coordination, our first destination collection, things that they are really invested into and get their support and buy-in to help us with some of the roadblocks that might come up. So the next piece we were going to talk about is very similar to our academic partners because it's faculty. So we were going to share some information of how we've engaged faculty. And one of the reasons, and I think one of the easier things to do was really create strong relationships with our deans and with our advisors, which was kind of our first touch points. Faculty were a little tougher, and I think because of that, we kind of started at the bottom, went up to the top, and then kind of came back into the middle. Some of the examples and ways we've engaged, one of the first things we did was to do a faculty recognition program. And within that program, our goal was certainly to recognize and give some kudos to our faculty, but we also were attempting to figure out who are the people on this campus who are already doing this work and kind of how can we use this program to identify our champions. So we had students nominate faculty who were helping them in their career development process. And we then selected 20 winners. We had probably, I think, over 100 nominations our first year. We've since had 2 years of that program. So we have 40 faculty who are kind of our our champions. So when we have something come up and we need faculty to attend, those are the faculty that we send things to. We recently did a marketing campaign for faculty, and those are the faculty we sent it to. And because they're very invested in the work of career development and career readiness and helping their students become career ready, we've been able to kind of plug them when we need to get the word out to other faculty. And from that, we've been able then, because of them and because of their partnership with us, we've been able to get into faculty meetings to share some of the things that we've done. We are in all of their classrooms, which I think is outstanding because we hadn't been before. So the program allowed us to create a relationship and then to kind of embed and better collaborate with those individuals. So as far as classes go, not only did we get within those 40 faculty winners classrooms, but we also pulled all of the intro and capstone courses and reached out and said, hey, this looks like an opportunity where we could come in and introduce ourselves from the Career Center, or if you're going to be out for a class, we can come in and we can teach. And I think that's a great method. I do think at a certain point that would become unsustainable because we only have 10 career coaches, and at a certain point we can't be in every classroom. So one of the things that we did more recently is to actually bring in our faculty winners, and they brought a syllabus with them, and we went through the NACE top 10 skills that employers are looking for, and we worked with them to kind of workshop their syllabus and to say, where are you teaching some of these students these skills? We know that students are gaining these skills in the classroom that employers do want, but oftentimes when we hear from employers, our students don't know how to talk about it. So we chatted with faculty around how could they better embed this into their classroom. And I think for me, that's taking the collaboration a little further, because that collaboration is them then truly integrating career into their courses and into the way they run those courses and how they talk to students about the things that they're gaining in the classroom. So that's probably been one of my favorite things that we've done with faculty, because I think it creates a collaboration that doesn't always, not to say that it doesn't need us, I think the collaboration still involves us, but it also allows us to better scale some of the things that we're doing. One of the other things on here that I kind of jumped over was the career fair breakfast. So we also, at the beginning of our career fair, invite faculty in to chat with employers during the career fair. And that's a great opportunity for faculty to hear from employers what they're missing from the classroom, and then employers can take that back to students. So it again is increasing that collaboration among multiple stakeholders. And with that, we're going to transition to Trisha, who's going to talk more about that employer piece.
Perfect. Thank you, Kelly. So you can go to the next slide already, Ethan. So some of the things that we want to talk about, so employers and alumni are definitely some of those stakeholders that are essential to what we do, but they're maybe a little trickier to plug in, or they're a little bit different than how we might plug in our on-campus partners. So just want to highlight a few of the things that we've done to really try to serve our employer partners better. And we've kept alumni in here because we do have alumni career services, and they have certain things that we do. But one of the focuses that we have moving forward is really folding in the alumni that we have at employers, or using alumni that are working for employers that either have a relationship with us or that maybe don't have a relationship with us yet, and really trying to engage with the alumni that may be there, even though they may not be HR or within that recruiting field, they can still kind of get us in the door. So one of the big changes that we've seen in the last year that we've undertaken to try to have this collaborative model extend further and really extend the capacity of what we're doing with employers is that we've actually changed the model of our team and how we function. So we've moved our employer engagement staff to an industry-focused model. So we have a staff of 4, soon to be 5 in a couple of weeks, which we're very excited about. But what we've done, instead of having staff that work with employers that have very specific responsibilities like just career fair or just internships or student employment, and a lot of campuses, we've had that model for a long time, and a lot of other campuses do too. But what we've moved to is really making our entire team employer engagement specialists, and really assigning a handful of industries to each individual and making them the expert in that area. Allowing them the resources and the time to make themselves as much of an expert as possible, which means not just getting to know the employers in that area, the ones that we have great relationships with and maybe the ones that we want to go after, but also allowing them to create a more intentional relationship with the coaches that serve students that might be interested in those industries, as well as the academic partners that we have that overlap there, so that we really do have a team that's able to be a one-stop shop for an employer that comes in. So for an example, the reason we really like this, we may get an employer that calls and says, I want to talk about I have a question about internships and career fairs. Instead of having to direct them to maybe 2 different people or figure out who they need to talk to, they have a point person that I know who your health industry specialist is. Let me get you in touch with that person, and they are trained to know at least a little bit about a lot of things that our office offers, and really able to serve that employer in a better way. And the positive things that we're starting to see out of this is a fairly new model for us. Is not just that one-stop convenience for employers, but that it helps us create a deeper relationship with them, because they're always talking to that same person when they call, and when we reach out for them to be on a panel or an event, or we have a student that has a question about them, we hopefully already have that relationship with them, and that question isn't out of the blue, it's not a cold call. It's a warm conversation from someone that they've worked with and that kind of speaks their language. Because we know that employers from different sectors definitely have different needs, and sometimes actually do speak very different languages depending on what they're hiring for and what they do. So that's one of the big things that we've done, and that's our second example is just talking about employer programming. What we do, I think, mirrors what a lot of campuses do, but this industry focus has helped us to try to, I think, fine-tune our programming a little bit better. One of the pictures that you'll see on this slide is our Meet series. One of the kind of sticking points that we've run into, and I know I've heard this from other campuses, are these information sessions that our employers want to do, but how do we actually get students to show up for them? I know we are, at a point, got notorious for having kind of somewhat empty info sessions by no fault of anybody's, but it was just hard if the employer didn't have a name that was known, or was at a funky time, and just couldn't get bodies in the room. And so we made a really simple switch that was an idea from one of our staff to do a series where it's every week at the same time there's someone here, and we call it our Meet series, and this is I think from spring, this was our lineup. But we're able to have this consistent programming that students are coming to know, and they know they can show up. There's also food as a component, hence the meet part of the event, so that always helps. But employers are starting to know that there is this regular series, and there's only so many Tuesdays per semester. So it's starting to be more known, and so that's helping on the employer and the student side. So that is just one example of how we've tried to move our employer programming forward, in addition to a lot of the other things that we're doing. And for sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and kick it to Kelly, and she's going to take it from there.
Yeah, and we're actually going to kick it to Aaron.
Okay.
Yeah, so this last piece, we hope just kind of ties everything together, is this creating collaborative environments. And I want to point out this picture that we used intentionally on this slide is from like a staff bonding scavenger hunt that we have now annually. And I think this ties into, we're going to talk about how this collaborative environment needs to exist like internally to our office, as well as bleed out into the campus partners we work with as well. And internally, I think it's, as long as I've been here, there's always been this sense of we work together and we have fun together, and we are a team and a family. And I think even though we're very busy people, we find time to do fun things like the slideshows and do strike a yoga pose in front of the block U for 5 points in the scavenger hunt. But anyway, if you can advance to the next slide, Ethan, then I'll talk specifically about how this has played out. And I think, so the internal value system. Speaking to that, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we started this a strategic planning process to kind of lay the groundwork for where we wanted to be in the next five years or so. And one of the pieces that arose from that is, we have this collaborative spirit around our office, but it's not formalized in the sense of, written values anywhere. And I think we've hired intentionally about collaborative people, and it's always been a bullet point within the job posting of, be able to build, fast and sustained relationships across campus and internally, but it hasn't been formalized. So one of the things that we did was get together as a leadership team and as an office to come up with what are our values, and one of the key values that came up was collaboration. And how that plays out is, it manifests in many ways, but I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed simply working in this office is we all have very customer service oriented mindsets, including to our colleagues. One of my coworkers who's worked at many other places has commented many times how this is one of the most collaborative places she's been, and she's joked about how when there's an email that goes out to the team of, can I get help covering this presentation? I've got 2 students at the same time, I accidentally overbooked, and can someone help me cover? It's almost a competition to see who can cover something sooner. So we're very collaborative in that sense, and I think it's really been a part of our internal value system. So we formalized it in that way. So the first picture, if you advance once, even shows we've identified this is a picture of one of the walls in our office where we've got a screen out in our lobby, and we've put our values up there, and one of the key ones that we identified was collaboration. So speaking to how that ties into our external collaborations, one of our mantras as we've been busier and as we've been trying to scale a lot is to work smarter and not harder. And so you could go ahead and show the picture even. One of the things we've done specifically around that is try to, rather than create programs for the sake of creating programs that are fun and unique, we try to collaborate with an external stakeholder on campus to make our programs, one, less work for us and get more student attendance because there's another office that's on board. So this picture is of a kickoff event we did at the beginning of the semester where we partnered with our academic advising center just to welcome students to campus. We had some yard games out and some free Pepsi and things like that, and we just kind of had a kickoff event to say, welcome to you, and we're the Career Center, we're here to help. But that's one example. We've also done employer panels and things like this. We've done them ourselves in years past and have had varying levels of success with them. But the ones that have been most successful are when we say, let's find a class that wants to have employers come on campus and do a panel. Let's tie to that class and say, we'll help you get the employers here. And now we guarantee we'll have 30 students because your class is going to be full. And we can partner that way. So working smarter around finding really intentional collaborations across campus, rather than just try to we've got this great idea for a panel, let's make it happen. It's let's take this great idea for a panel and find out who else wants to do this with us so we can be even more successful. So yeah, I hope that we really think that this is the key piece that ties all of our topics that we touched on together. It's not just, we work hard to make a relationship with employers or with our faculty. At the core of all of this is we understand the importance of collaborative relationships and environments. And I don't think this is anything new and not new to us, but it's something that we've realized as being core to this issue. So with that, that's the presentation that we've prepared. Ethan, we'd love to take whatever questions have come in and start to create a dialogue around these topics and how others see on their campuses in different ways.
Yeah, we are definitely have plenty of time to open it up for that. I certainly know I have plenty of my own questions here that we can kick it off with. So, and it was great to get a sense of the initiatives that you guys put in place. And one of the things that I was really curious about, Eric, you said at the end, talking about working smarter, not harder, but it seems like this really was a lot of work. And in a way, your initial focuses as a career development center is to serve the students and alumni that are at your institution. And in this way, it seems like now you're serving, employers, the academic partners that you're working with. So, how did you really divvy up the responsibilities and things like that from the beginning, to be able to work as a team to collectively kind of start making these relationships, really start identifying the work that you can do based off of those pain points that you were discovering? Really, what did it look like, behind the scenes, and how did you guys kind of strategize how that would work and who would handle what?
Well, I would say one thing to start with is I don't think creating strong relationships across campus is something that happens quickly. I think this has been a process that we've been really investing in for a long time to build those relationships across all of our stakeholders. So I think that's important too for anyone listening to this who feels like maybe they don't have as strong of collaborations in a certain area from their campus, is to know that it has taken a lot of time, but I think also some intentional strategy behind it.
Yeah, and I think what came to mind when you were asking that question is, I mean, we've got different functional areas in our office, like the employer engagement team and the coaching team, and all the coaches are aligned with academic departments for liaison roles and such. So like, who does this work isn't so much of a question. You know, we all have a responsibility in making this happen. But I think the key is kind of going back to the first slide about creating these collaborative environments and spaces. It really boils down to the how pieces that we talked about, with you know, really finding out what are the pieces that we all have as common goals. Like one of the strongest collaborations that I have personally within my role is with our College of Fine Arts. And it's been very successful, and I feel like hardly any of that has to do with the work that I've done. I identified a group of students that was working within the college under their associate dean, whose mission, I mean, literally you could copy paste, it would be the mission of my role as a career coach for the College of Fine Arts. And so rather than coming in and saying, I got all these ideas and I want to collaborate with programming, it's like, whoa, we have the same mission here, and I love the work you're doing. How can I support you? And can we find ways that, you know, we can each do less work because we're doing the same work? So I think, it does take a little bit of work to identify those and build the relationship to a point of, you know, trust and credibility. But the long-term goal is to, like I said, work smarter in the end and not harder.
Yeah, great. And now we have a couple questions around the faculty recognition program from Levita Joseph. The first one, you know, this was really driven by the students. So how did you get students involved and advertise that in the first place to get them to nominate those faculty members?
We sent a lot of emails, and really that's how we marketed it, emails and social media. And surprisingly, I think the students latched onto it. Because I thought we'd have to do more, and nominations started rolling in. We also strategically do it around the holidays when we're asking for nominations. I think typically for most people around end of year when their semester's wrapping up, they might have more time to quick submit a nomination, but it also doesn't take them long. So it's a quick paragraph where they just identify their name and contact information, the faculty member, and then a quick nomination around how that faculty supported them in their career development. So it's not a letter, it's not a long process, it's very quick and easy. And I think for students, it's something they can do on their phone. So yeah.
Excellent. Now, what did you guys do, you know, in terms of sifting through those to ultimately decide who was going to be receiving those awards and recognition?
Yeah, the first year, it was kind of like we just made up an award. So we were like, okay, we got a lot of nominations. One thing we were strategic about is that we did want to identify winners in different colleges. So we tried to pick a winner from at least each college. And we serve from our office 11 different colleges on this campus. So wanting to make sure that we could, where we could and had a nomination, we wanted to find somebody in that college that could be recognized. As we entered into the second year, we did formalize it further, and now we make sure that we have a past faculty winner as well as an academic advisor who helps with some office staff, as well as some of our student ambassadors to review the nominations. And the reason we included faculty is because our first year, we found out from one of our faculty winners that they're able to get an increase or ask for a raise, an additional compensation if they get an award if there was a faculty member on that review committee. So we then invited faculty to better help them and support them, and then this is something, if their department does that, they can ask for increased compensation for their award.
Awesome. And now we have some more questions coming in, so I will get to those first before I get to mine. So this comes from Dannon Loveland. So he asks, with all of the informal work you've done with organizations across campus, have you ever thought that there needs to be a more formalized relationship, you know, such as combining offices?
To clarify, is that combining offices is in kind of like career center and some of the academics components?
Didn't have a direct specification there. Dan, if you want to, feel free to pop that in the chat. We can get that there. But, you know, I mean, one thing that initially pops into my mind is, you know, I know that you're obviously the centralized office for career and professional development, but I also know that the business school has their own career and professional development center. Yeah, he is speaking yes. I think he's speaking yes to the first point that you made, Kelly, with the combining offices with the academic offices.
Yeah.
Office hours.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think one thing we do have is office hours. A lot of our coaches will do office hours in the college space to be where the students are. I think one reason why our leadership team likes the model we currently have is because there is power in numbers. There are certain times of the year where some colleges might be busier, and when we're in the same space, I can easily, you know, pop by Eric and say, hey, Eric, I double booked. I have a student and another student really needs to get in today at this time. Can you meet with them? I think it's a lot easier to navigate some of that because our coaches really are a united force, even though they might serve different populations of students. And we also have changed our model so that our coaches don't only serve students in the college that they work with. So they have liaisons to those colleges. They do a lot of programming and classroom presentations with those colleges. They will probably see a good proportion of those students, but we've changed where our model is a little more a juncture of an industry model and a kind of affiliated with an academic partner model, in that any student can meet with any of our coaches. And our coaches have specific liaisons industries that they have. So one of our career coaches that I pick on a lot because I think her industries mesh with a lot of different colleges. She works with our government and government entities, political agencies, and if a student who's not majoring in what her college liaison is, which is the social sciences, they can still see her if they're interested in getting involved with government. So for a lot of our other colleges, it kind of opened that up. So I don't know, that's a long-winded answer to answer that, but I think we do embed a little bit, but don't want to do too much since we don't just see those students in that college for that specific person.
Now, you guys are the central part that's engaging all of these different stakeholders, you know, students, faculty and staff, alumni and employers. Obviously, we know that students are engaging with staff, students are engaging with employers, students are engaging with alumni. I'm curious if there's any way that you guys have engagement and collaboration between you know, faculty members and employers, if there's any connection there.
That's a great question. I would say it's a work in progress, maybe like many of the things that we do. One of the big highlights that Kelly mentioned was this idea of inviting faculty to those career fairs. The nice thing about our career fairs is that they're long running and they're existing, and there's some general knowledge of the fact that they're happening, and really giving that invite to the faculty of come beforehand and chat with those employers. We've had varying amounts of success depending on kind of what departments those employers are coming from. We definitely get better turnout for events like that with our STEM fair than we do with our all-campus fair. And I think some of kind of the stereotypes that go along with employers and faculty in those STEM fields kind of hold true. But what we found is that special invite of come talk to them before they're at a table in a noisy room, chat with them, that has been fairly well received. But we're always looking to expand the opportunities to make those connections, because one of the things we have found is we have employers that ask, you know, that they want to get in front of students in the classroom, and that's something that's actually we found to be very tricky on our campus. There's some departments that are open to it, but that is a harder thing to deliver than maybe for us than maybe it is on some other campuses. So we're always looking for other ways to engage employers with faculty members. And I think we found success building it in around existing events instead of trying to create new things, because there's so much going on already.
And now, I remember when I spoke to Eric and Kelly for some content that we did in the past that kind of introduced the partnerships with academic partners. It was really kicked off with responses from a survey where 33% of student appointments made at your office came through academic advisor referrals. So that kind of brings up two parts. One is, now that you've kind of been in this program and if you've done some more surveying, how has that maybe changed, or how have you seen the benefits of that? Are you seeing more students coming in, or are less students coming in just through academic referrals and more coming in, just naturally because there's more awareness? And then the second part is, what types of resources and things like that have you been providing to your academic partners to make sure they're really sharing kind of the same message and focusing on the same things that your office is really focusing on?
I can touch on the first part of this. I don't have an updated stat on that, but that really is the impetus of us partnering specifically with academic partners. Is we know that a lot of students hear about us because on our campus they have to meet with an academic advisor in order to register for classes. There's a first year and now even a second year mandatory advising touch point. And so, students don't have to come meet with us, and I'm still amazed at how many students I meet that didn't realize that we existed until their advisor told them. So that was a really intentional piece, knowing that advisors see every student, and at least on our campus are kind of the front lines of some of these conversations around, what are you doing with your life? Well, hey, you should talk to the Career Center because this is what they do to help students. And so I think that advisors was a very strategic and simple touch point for our office to say, here's an easy way of getting in front of lots of students through the advisors. Make sure all of our advisors have our business cards, our event brochures, things that they can just give out to students in those one-on-one meetings. And then for how do we kind of make our messaging consistent? Kelly, you might be able to speak more of this, but we've done specific trainings for advisors on, how do you refer a student to us? Every semester, fall semester, we do open house events where we invite advisors across campus from all colleges to come and have breakfast or lunch in our office, and then we give a presentation, typically around what's coming down the pipeline in terms of initiatives and new programs, and also how can you make sure you're referring your students appropriately to our office. We walk through, here's what the scheduling system looks like, here's how you can, bring this conversation up with your students, so we know that they kind of have that messaging down.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, one other thing that has been really helpful is to integrate into existing meetings of academic advisors. So our academic advising community as a whole, all of them get together once a month, and our office in the last 3 years has been a standing agenda item on that. So every month I get up and I talk for 5 minutes. I have 5 minutes and share some of the things that we're up to, and also make sure that I bring printed materials so that they can hang things on their office doors so that they know what's coming in the next month. And it's been a really great way just to get in front of all of them at once. And then they know what's going on, and then they'll follow up and hey Eric, Kelly talked about this, but can I have another flyer? I ran out, right? So they know constantly what's going on in our office and helping us partner and market our services and events.
Awesome. Now I think we have about time for maybe 2 more questions. Levita Joseph has another follow-up really around the marketing and kind of specific strategies you used. So if anyone has something else, feel free to pop it in as we have just a few more minutes left here with Kelly, Eric, and Trisha. So Levita asked, how did you increase the awareness of your department across campus? You mentioned marketing, email, and social media. And also, more of that just faculty advocacy. Could you get a little bit more specific, about any specific campaigns that you did, or any more details around, how you specifically leverage kind of some marketing strategies?
Yeah. So from that same survey that told us that 30% of students came because of meeting with their advisor, we asked similar questions on other event surveys, and I'm surprised that the consistent response for how people hear about our events and our services is through physical advertisements and signs across campus. We have a pretty big campus, and students walk across, from housing to the classroom, so they're out a lot, and we have like yard signs that we hang in spots across campus, and that's surprisingly been the highest number of responses. How do you hear about our events? That's the answer for a lot of things. So for our big like signature events that we really want to get out, we have like yard signs across campus, and for our emails, we have been somewhat strategic with that, just because students get a ton of emails, and I delete emails that I'm like, well, that's not relevant. So I know that students would do the same, right? So rather than send emails constantly with our events, we really are strategic about like which events should be put in a monthly newsletter versus what deserves the day of blast or the day before blast. And I guess I can't think of specific like consistent answers to how that looks, but we do think about it very intentionally with marketing events. Is let's not put everything in an email, and let's decide what needs its own email and things like that.
One thing I'd add to that is I think marketing is a struggle for every office on a college campus because we're all trying to reach the same market. We're all trying to reach students. So they're overloaded and bombarded with marketing. And one of the things we had a lot of conversation in our strategic plan around as a leadership team is a lot of times we market what we do and not why it matters. So part of our kind of strategy right now is how do we market why a student should engage with us, and then once they do engage with us, we can share all the great things we do, the great services we provide, all of our wonderful programs. But I think first is why should a student even care to come into our office, and not when they're graduating, but when they're in their first year, in their second year. So we haven't quite figured that out yet, but that's kind of what we're trying to do is focus more on why a student should come in and how to get that message out about you should be visiting the Career and Professional Development Center, regardless of what program it is.
And now, as we close things out, one thing we haven't necessarily talked much about is the actual career outcomes, and the big part of what's coming out of the Career Development Center. So it's really tied to your mission of creating graduates who are really passionate and engaged in their field. So now that you have been involved in this collaboration, getting all these stakeholders together for a little bit, what types of, how are you kind of seeing that mission kind of come to fruition a bit with, recognizing students are thinking about their careers, and really identifying and aligning those with their passions, and then graduating and moving on into careers that are based around that?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? I think, that's the ultimate goal, and we're striving to have that be our outcome, and as we're working to measure that, that's what we hope to achieve. Speaking to the outcomes of the university degree and things like that, overseeing the first destination piece of that, I can speak that I'm hopeful that we'll have continually more data to be able to answer that question better. Since I've started taking over that piece of work, we have boosted our knowledge rate, but we still are working to gather more, as I think lots of college campuses are. We're about at a 55% knowledge rate of where grads go at the end of each semester, and looking at that data, it's really exciting to see that students are getting really positive outcomes, and kind of tying that into their exit surveys with their departments, and the student affairs sends out a graduating student survey to kind of see what pieces of their college experience maybe led to those positive outcomes. That's the goal, but we don't have, I guess, systemized methods of answering that question really well, but that's our motivation. Yeah.
Well, thank you to all three of you for joining us today. Again, I apologize to everyone for those technical difficulties. I'm a little bit of a better talker than I am with manning the slide shares and the computer. So we will work on that for next time, but I think we can also do a little bit of editing magic on the back end to kind of fix that a bit too. So we will be archiving this webinar and sharing this out with everyone. We definitely want people to be able to share this with those who may have not been able to attend today. But first of all, a big thank you to Trisha, Kelly, and Eric for joining us. We hope this is only the first time and not the last time we can have you back again. If you guys have any closing words, let you guys have the floor here quickly if there's any announcements or anything you guys wanted to say to close things out.
I would just say thank you, and if you have questions or want to reach out to us to have any further conversations, our contact information is, I believe, somewhere on the slide deck, and you can definitely reach out to us.
Yep, and we will also we'll as we do the editing, we'll put that at the end of the webinar, so that's kind of up there for a little bit longer, so everyone can get that contact information, get in touch with you guys. We'll also put everyone an opportunity to get in touch with CampusTap if you'd like to be involved with the webinar with us in the future. We know a lot of the people attending these are in career services and alumni relations. That's what we are usually talking about. And we love having guests and are hosting these very regularly from month to month. So thank you to everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoons, and we hope to see you soon. We'll be actually getting back to you with a date for our next webinar in the coming weeks pretty soon as well.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.